All right, welcome to Expat American. My name is josephstephenrose, the Expat American. I am here with Igor in Russia, who also has a new channel name that he started about a month ago. And in this live stream, we want to talk to a Soviet man, which is who he is. We're going to find out what that means. And we're going to find out what he thinks of America, because on this show, there's a lot of talk about what Westerners think of Russia, and we're kind of trying to, at least I'm trying to, if it needs to be done, re-educate the Western world on Russia. But this time, we're going to do something different, and we're going to look in the other direction, and we're going to find out from someone who is a Soviet man what he thinks of America. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
What's up, everybody, and hello from Russia. This is Kronstadt, the independent city of St. Petersburg. This is the place, that place behind me, those ships behind me is actually the Russian Baltic Fleet. So I wanted to show you guys something special. So we're doing history with Expat American here. Not a home studio this time, but I'm Igor, yes, true, and I'm a guy from West to East Quest channel, also from my previous channel, Igor in Russia. I'm a foreigner traveling to Russia. I was born in Soviet Union. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the history and legacy, despite I'm being pushed around because of it, you know. But yeah, and definitely happy to be here with you.
Okay, so someone asked a question already. They said, "Are you really Soviet? How old are you?" So can you clarify that for them?
Yeah, I was born in '85. I was born in Soviet, is it republics? So Latvian Republic in Soviet Union. So yes, I'm a Soviet man, and you know, a lot of people are Soviet people. Everybody who's born before 1990 or 91.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my wife, it says on her passport, which is like her birth certificate, SSSR, USSR, which I think is fascinating, that she is, in my eyes, part of history. You know, it's something we all know, but something that doesn't exist anymore. And as time goes by, there will be fewer and fewer Soviet men.
But I was born in Latvia, but I lived all my life in Finland. I lived all my life in Finland, and my passport says actually, it says just Riga. It doesn't say Soviet Union, which is, I wouldn't mind if it would read so, because I was born in Soviet Latvia. You know, basically it's the same thing, but for some people not. Latvia and Latvians wouldn't say Soviet Latvia, but I do.
What do you mean you were pushed around a bit?
Man, the sound is very robotic. Pushed around. Pushed around. I mean, not pushed around, but I mean, you know, it feels like in the normal, when you talk about Soviet history, for example, in the West, it always refers as a negative way, as not as like a normal way at all. So it's like somehow, you know, like a horrible government. So you were from Soviet Union. You know, it's never like, well, I was born in Soviet Latvia. That was a country back then. Did a lot of great stuff. Some things, like any country, did something else which is debatable. Some are less debatable. But I mean, I say it. I maybe, well, I'm a good provocateur in some ways. So I like to say things right in their face, like, "Hey, yeah, Soviet Union, yeah, great thing," and that's astonishing for them because they never hear anything good about it, and since their childhood.
Right. Well,
by the way, I'm shouting in English in the Russian Naval Base, kind of. And it's
well,
fine.
I was going to ask you, since you're on location and since the weather's not that great, in case you have to go to a different area, why don't you tell us now where you are and what we're looking at behind you?
Yes, so I'm one of the YouTubers who are based in St. Petersburg. Well, I arrived from the West to St. Petersburg, but I'm one of those who, the base city is St. Petersburg. For you, it's Moscow. For some YouTubers, it's something else. Mostly, it's Moscow, right? Right. So for me, it's St. Petersburg. So St. Petersburg, just like Moscow, has different regions, which is part of Moscow city, but they're separate areas. So this city here is from the 1700s, it was like a naval city for Russian Empire, and it still is. And it was a closed military city until 1996. So I'm in a military city at the Russian Baltic Fleet's home base, and that's the actual Russian fleet behind me. There's like dry docks over there, etc. And this is like a tourist location.
So what do you mean a closed city? I think what you mean is only citizens of that country were able to go there, no tourists allowed, or only people that actually were supposed to live in that city?
There's probably KGB is trying to block our signal. Just joking.
How
But
about
if I'm
this,
correct,
Igor?
oh, it's better. It's great, Mike.
So what does a
everybody's
closed
allowed
city
here.
mean?
Well, it used to be, you have still militarily closed cities in Russia, and especially if you're a foreigner, you have no business there. But if you don't live there, you cannot go in. So there's like a special areas where you go in, they check your passport and your intentions. For example, border cities are probably something like that. So you're not supposed to be there. But if you're in the border city, your aim is to go away, so you're fine. But if you come there as a tourist, you have to get a special permission, which you probably won't get. So there's still military cities even now, but this is not anymore a closed military city, even though there's a lot of officers living here, a lot of academies, and active naval base here as well.
Okay, so it sounds like it would be something like a government building, except instead of one building, it was an entire city.
Man, I don't know why. I'm gonna go further from the sea, maybe, because
Yeah, go
the
for it,
internet
man.
is.
And I'll go to some questions while you move.
Up.
You sound fine to us, to me anyway. Guys,
Good.
tell us what you think of Igor.
Good. Now I can hear you fine.
Okay. So I was saying it sounds like a closed city is just like if you were to go to a government building. Instead of one building, it's an entire city.
Well, yeah. People actually just live here. It's just not there's different normal apartment buildings and etc. here. I'm trying to come up with the answer because I couldn't hear the question properly. I wonder what's wrong.
No worries. So, guys,
yeah, fine,
if you're
good, but it's maybe for
you get to a spot that's better, and I'll remind everyone where we are. So this is Igor in Russia. He is at a Russian Naval Base. He also has a new channel called West to East Quest, and he has the most popular new video on my channel, the Ukrainian Cafe in Russia video. I just checked; it is number 4 in the past 48 hours, even though it's not super new right now, and it is moving on up the charts to be number 8 of all time Expat American show in terms of views. So definitely, awesome. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. It's a fun show, and it's interesting to see that in Russia they are not afraid to celebrate and enjoy even cultures that maybe the mainstream media tells them they're not supposed to like. So someone asked, will Josiah be here? He is nearby. I asked him if he wanted to be here. He said maybe. And he's like a Russian man. He'll just be dead honest with you. So guys, when you send us your questions, make sure it's all caps and 3 question marks for me. It'll be easier for me to see it. And someone asked a trolling question about when do we think the NATO-Russia war is going to begin. Maybe they weren't trolling, but just so you all know, in case you don't know, we need to be careful of the algorithm here. So we'll give you 80% of the truth, not 100. But obviously, Igor and I would not know that. And just to be clear, we are not giving our opinion on that entire conflict. So we have.
But I would say it's a very.
Go ahead.
It's a very sad situation because you have about this trolling question. This topic is somehow so people write about it now in the Western media, which I unfortunately have to read daily since I'm most of my time in the West. they always say now very like naturally and somehow maybe it's the idea to prepare people and maybe to get them, you know, routed up. So they always say now, yeah, now lately it's not about if, it's about when. And now Germany says, general says it's gonna be in this time, and Estonia says this, you know, this. Somehow it's weird. They try to make it normalize the topic for the citizens. It's and route people up. Route is the right word, you know. It's it's weird things going on in the
rally them up,
media sphere.
rally them up. Yeah, I mean, if that really was something that was about to happen, I would imagine we wouldn't be hearing about it like that. You know, it could be just. I don't know. Who knows? What do I know? I should shut up now. All right. So we do have a question that's a bit antagonizing for you. Are you ready, Igor? I'll put it on the screen. I don't know. Can you read that, or you want me to read it for you?
The sound is very crazy.
Can you read the question on the
something
screen?
that I've never heard. No, I don't see any chats on this my view for some reason.
So
and I don't
someone asked, you were 6 when the USSR collapsed. How do you know anything about Soviet life?
Yeah, that's interesting. Good question, by the way. And well, how I remember a lot. Hold up, I'm gonna pick up my. Good question, and I think it's somehow in my blood. If it doesn't make any sense, because I remember a lot about it. I was actually 7 when I moved out, so yeah, 6, and I still feel some kind of a connection. This is not a nostalgia video about Soviet things or anything, but it's just like it's my childhood. And I strongly remember and feel it. I don't know why or how. Every time before I found Russia in 2016, I understood that this is the place that I want to be at. So back then I traveled to the city I was born at, Riga. And I felt the Russian, like Soviet neighborhoods. I felt a strong connection to it. I didn't understand why. It's a nostalgia feeling, positive nostalgia. So it changed. I always felt connection, and I remember a lot of things. I remember this from my grandmother's in Russia. City, like the emotional memory is strong. So I'm not in. I don't know what I'm supposed to else say, because this is not about that. We're not talking about that the life in Soviet Union was better, even though many people would say so. But I'm not the one who's saying it. I don't actually care, because times are different. Russia is Russia. It's a capitalistic country, and it's fine. And but I don't know what the person is actually trying to get out of it with the question, except that Svetlana, yes, I do remember a lot. And
her name is Svetlana Vladimirova. Did I say that right, Svetlana Vladimirova? So, and yes, she's just a good Russian gal, and so she asks very direct questions. She says, I make her out to be the bad guy. Perhaps I do, but you're a good bad guy, and it's very helpful. Just like Josiah, I need the conflict. People want to see it.
Yeah,
Svetlana, so I appreciate.
I guess yeah, I wonder where
so,
she's
and
from.
I would say to that.
Yeah.
So Igor, like you were 6, so you know. In case you guys don't know, I was a businessman before I started doing this. For over 20 years, I had my own childcare in Florida. And so I was a childcare director. So my specialty was children. And what I learned is, you know, through reading, is that a person is 90% who they're going to be. It's like 90% set. There's nothing you can do about it by the time they're 4 years old. So you might not be able to have a great memory of Soviet times, perhaps, but if you were 6, it definitely made you who you are today.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Yes, that makes sense, because I also feel some kind of a weird connection to everything. You know, I feel strong. For example, I never lived in Russia. Why am I feel I am Russian? Why do I feel like I'm Russian? And I always felt like that. Why? Well, maybe that explains it partially, because I was born in Russian family, even though I lived most of my life in the West. But I was shaped during the early years, and thank God for that.
Right. Okay, well let's get to one of my questions, which is the topic of the video, and that is, America, and what does a Soviet man think of America? And the first topic, because it's a big question, that I'm curious about American culture. It could include, the media, entertainment, and the reason why I want to start with this one, in case people don't know, is you were on your way to becoming a pop star, and you were at some level. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in some parts, I maybe were rap artists. So a lot of my influences were from America, despite strong and emotions and magnetism towards Russia. So yeah, I might have a lot to say about American culture and politically as well, if we go into that. So yeah, I was doing rap. Shortly, I've made some rap music. I had hundreds of performances and still do every now and then. It's not my main thing, but I'm just good at it. Sorry to say, I'm just good at rapping. And yes, English was my main language in rap.
So then you are a mild expert when it comes to entertainment. So tell us, what do you think of American culture, Soviet man?
Probably we're not talking about the quality because I'm not the right person, but what it means is that I think, I don't know, was it some parts maybe even planned or not, but American culture dominates the world since, I don't know, music-wise, starting 70s, because before that, Britain dominated that. Then the shift became during the 70s, maybe late 70s. And music, in general, pop culture, that's a way of influencing people's minds. And I think American culture dominates TV, media, music. What else do we have? Anything else? So basically, and it influences, and you can see that influence in the young people's behavior in the West. Not so much here, even here though, because they're starting to. I've listened to some kids. They imitate the American ways to speak. You know, they see so much cool videos. They want to be Americans, meaning they think about positive. Always when you see American, you think, hey, yeah, Miley Cyrus. You know, that type of affiliation. It works. It's the best propaganda ever. I don't know, was that the case, but that's the result of it. So I think American culture, not culture, what was it? Yeah, pop culture. It's miles, light years ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I guess it's because America has been, like, for the past 100 years, the world power, the empire, and before that, it was Britain for about 100 years. So what that means is you have English being king for a long, long time around the world. I could be wrong, and feel free to argue with me if I am. But I think that helps America push its culture all around the world, for better or for worse. And I'm not saying it's all bad. I think some
Me
of it is
neither.
good.
Me neither.
Some of it is bad.
Yeah. And those kids are going to grow up to be decision makers, presidents and ministers. And since they always had a foundation, a cultural foundation that they adopted into their own culture, local, national culture or something, that affects in the long run hugely. And I've always thought about, for example, people are ready to pay for American flag in their clothing. Clothing is one part of the culture as well. So people are proud to wear American flags. How many other countries you see that? You know, try that with a Russian flag in the West. So it's over politicized when it's totally normalized in the pop culture. You know.
Right. And from a capitalist point of view, if you are going to sell something, if you're able to do it in English, you just have a much larger market. And so it just creates a cascading effect. And I remember talking with Sveta, who was my new wife at the time, Svetlana Anohina Rose, not the other Svetlana who was just on the screen. And she helped me to realize, because I hadn't thought of this, she's like, Joe, you guys have another significant country on the other side of the world that speaks your language, that has a connection to you. And that is a unique thing and a great thing to have, because a lot of countries, they are their own culture with their own language, and there's no one else in the world like them. Which is, it's nice to be unique, but there's something about feeling like you have brothers somewhere else on the planet, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So.
Hey,
all right.
cat.
So what do you tell us, man? What do you think about
sorry,
music?
I have to say, on this channel, I love cats, and I always feed homeless cats. So only in Kronstadt, this is the second cat I've seen in winter.
Wow, you're a great guy.
Yeah, I just love cats. I became with my Anyways, I just wanted to point it out. There's a homeless cat, but she was gorgeous.
That's wonderful that God made us all different, because I would never do such a thing.
I usually have always cat food when I go out and film, and no matter what I'm filming, if there's a homeless cat, I'm gonna interrupt what I'm doing, live stream or not, and go and feed it. But right now, because I haven't seen all winter in Russia, they go in the basements, of course, because it's cold. So I'm shocked that there's actually cats in Kronstadt, but it's warm though. It's like 0 degrees now. All right, back to the topic.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say on music specifically, since you were a music star and we're talking about American culture versus Soviet culture?
Nothing negative, and probably you don't mean that, but I mean, just I fully understand and appreciate the way music is made, and I respect a lot how America is able to brand everything. Of course, it comes. It's not always, thankfully, industrial. Thanks for the industrial side of it. It's thanks to the people. For example, in rap, the black minorities, and they just they loved what they did. They were saying it's a passing trend, and now it dominates the whole everything, from clothing to music to TV and everything, and that's the power. That's how you see the power from being even in America. I think you have a lot of problems with blacks and whites. This in Spanish, the combination, there's a lot of racism, I think, maybe, but. Despite a situation like that, they're able to convert young kids, white kids, and make them feel that, hey, I want to be just like this darker girl or boy. I want to speak like them, I want to dress like them. That's the huge power of cultural influence, and that's why it's also politically and internationally like a very important thing to be taken into account.
Well, I'll say, as an American who was born in 1974, I grew up and I didn't know anything about race. That was just my experience. I mean, I knew there were different races, but I didn't know that races had been treated badly. I'm talking about when I was like 4 and 6 years old and whatnot. Of course, as I went to school and I got taught history, I learned about it. And then, it felt like a very minor issue, and I remember growing up and being a teenager and feeling like, wow, that's great that racism is behind us. I remember thinking things like that. And then as we got past the 90s, it seemed to become a thing again for some reason. And I think what's going on is, I think that this is a difference between Russia and America. I think in the past 20 or so years, America has been encouraging, or let's say DC has been encouraging, that you are your subculture first and you are an American second. And I think in Russia, it's the reverse. I think in Russia, you are a Russian first, whether you are a Christian or an atheist or an agnostic or a Muslim or a communist or a capitalist or anything, you are a Russian first, period. And I think that correct, is a very important distinction. And I think that, we're seeing two different European cultures, let's say, who are, it's like a giant global experiment. And one is living like this, with traditional family values right now, I think, and that's Russia, in my opinion. And one is saying, what if we don't live with traditional family values? And we're seeing the fruits of this, which is very, very interesting.
Cafe Georgia. Speaking of international minority groups in Russia, Georgia is Georgians is one big minority group as well.
Oh yeah. All right. So then,
yeah.
my next question to you is, what do you think of American influence, around the world? Like, what is your perspective? Like, I just shared my perspective. You grew up, you were first 6 years of your life in a Soviet land, and then you went on to Finland, where you were an adult and a pop star, and you speak how many languages?
Not enough, but I speak Finnish better than my home native language, Russian, meaning yes, Russian as well, and English, and just a little bit of Swedish because they made me, and then also very, very little German.
Wow, a little bit of German too. Very cool. So your first language is Finnish.
If you're talking about how strong it is, yes, it's Finnish. But my native language is
like
Russian,
which I speak the least. But it's not your first language.
Yeah, true.
Wow,
100%.
That's very interesting. So you really
and it's
are
fine, but I would.
Man.
Yeah, but we can discuss about the also growing up, the identity crisis, and being bullied for being something that I thought I didn't want to be, and then I realized that I am what I am, which is Russian with Finnish roots, and it's totally fine. But still, for many people, it's not fine because you have to choose. But let's not get into that. Yeah. Or maybe we will. I don't know.
So let's tackle that. So, because I'm wondering about what you think of American influence in the world, good and bad, outside of entertainment, and you have a unique perspective because you are kind of in the middle. You're kind of Eastern and Western at the same time.
Yeah. Well, the American influence, I think, it goes very. I think Putin has spoken about this one-sided. I don't know what's the correct word for it, but one-sided world, right? Meaning America dominates and everybody follows. And you can see that with the double standards, because when America or their allies do something which is Russia accused of, the sanctions or non-sanctions the actions are very different, right? Because the world is dominated mostly by the G7, right? Especially led by America. So that's also the situation which will bring even more problems, because America, understandably, I think personally, there's no reason for them to want to lose their power, right? So it's going to continue that way, and the countries that try to oppose that will do something that will look they can become more wars and more conflicts because of this. And that's the reason behind that is that the small group of countries that rule the world, economically especially, supported by military effect, they don't want to lose any of that significance that they have, just or unjust. So I think that's the situation where we at, and that's why one country can decide all of a sudden to shut one country down as a police state, not police state, but a policing the world. But when there's nobody to oppose them, it means they can also do the same things. They are judging others and not get any sanctions towards them or no actions. So this will go on and go on and go on until it breaks down, if it breaks down, or become total, monopoly for world would become total monopoly for the American and its allies, of course.
Right.
For example, also it's getting very political, but it's fine. For example, Turkey as a part of their allies, because of they wanted to, to buy Russian weapons. It's their own business, right? But America wanted to sanction them because they were buying something else. Like, that's crazy. That they did nothing wrong, but their action is all of a sudden is to sanction the country that decides to do something else. I think it's just weird and unjust, and it's, you cannot have good relations with Russia. That's the message. Do not buy anything from them, especially military. We want you to be fully in our control, or like system. We're talking about different military systems, etc. So I think it's an unhealthy situation, which leads to more dangerous conflicts and situations.
Right. I mean, I heard a theory once, if we're trying to understand DC and give them the benefit of the doubt, the theory I heard once is that ever since World War II, the Great War ended, the leadership in DC, the military, whatnot, their attitude was, things almost got really, really bad for the whole world, and thank God it didn't. But now that we have narrowly escaped this awful time, we are going to be sure that we never lose control again, that we will always, always be in charge of the world.
Yeah.
And we'll do whatever we have to keep it that way, even if we have to be a little bit bad, because we don't want it to be terrible again. And so
it actually started before that.
Try to understand what they're thinking. Go ahead.
It started actually before that. I read that America decided strategically to dominate the world very cleverly, like around the First World War, maybe even before that, or right after it, because they had the chance. So it's been everything that's led to this. It's been actually, tactical thinking. And world wars actually helped America greatly because they remained intact. And they were lending or giving out millions and millions of dollars to the Western America, to the west of Europe, to rebuild. So in some level, they always have to be grateful to America. Same thing, gratefulness for freedom doesn't come to Russia at all. There's no, it feels like it's been normalized that you don't have to say thank you to Russia for anything. And now, if we're talking about Second World War, like, I don't know how many countries did America actually liberate, or how many the concentration camps were like freed. All of a sudden it's normal not to invite even Russia into these events commemorating the liberation of a certain concentration camp,
right?
Of the actual camp that was freed by Russians, and Russians are not in invited. So it's crazy stuff. It's very really crazy. Like world is upside down right now. Yeah.
Well, since we're sort of on the topic, I want to give us another audience question, and the question is, what does and answer this carefully. Don't say anything you don't know. Don't say anything that would get you or the channel in trouble. What does your guest think about that guy Navalny?
I like, it's like the most common answer to that is I don't know, or I don't care. In Russia, I'm not like Russian citizen. I'm a foreigner in Russia, but I just say I don't know for real. But I know that the support that is behind him is overly exaggerated, but in the Western media. That's what I know.
You did a video about that recently, right? And you kind of polled Russians.
No, I didn't poll at all. I actually was a little bit. I went to the places to film and to see what's going on in the. There's a certain location where people went to give flowers to remember him or something like that. I read in the news. Then I wanted to see how does it look now a few days after. And there were still some flowers, etc., but nothing like special. But yeah, I was also thinking that as a foreigner, should I be here because it's a political topic? I want to be just, filming the reality, and that's it. But I was feeling like crazy, like looking around, and some people were also clearly a little bit afraid. Like a couple of girls, they had like the masks on, and I don't know, maybe also over exaggerating. Probably it is. It's. I also feed off. I read so much Western things, media news, that sometimes I even believe it, or it affects me. So I was also like, oh my God, will I get arrested because I'm a foreigner? No, nothing happened, and yeah, not many people there though. But I guess it's not that simple. People probably clear out also some of the flowers, but the support is not. I know that for a fact that people. It's over exaggerated how popular he was, and the Western people think he is like the opposer. He's not opposing anything with that support percentage, but he was maybe a symbol for somebody. I don't know. But anyway, it's horrible situation that when anybody dies, period. And
it's sad. But yeah, I've also been learning this from my channel, is that it doesn't sound like he was a big deal to Russia. It sounds like the West wants him to be a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he still counts as a person who lived and has now died, and we're sorry about that. But in terms of political stuff, I don't know. Well, you guys know what's up. I won't say anymore.
And that's the common tactics.
I'm going to ask Igor. Go on. You want to say something?
No, go on.
So I'm going to ask Igor my next question, and while he answers, I'm scanning for questions. So please don't be shy. We got over 100 of you in the live chat right now.
Just wanted to ask, how many millions do we have watching?
Give us some question marks, because he's here and he's happy to answer it. And we've got people from all around the world watching the show, so don't be shy. So
and notice, as we talk, I'm also giving you a tour, and also experiencing Kronstadt.
Tell us, what is that golden dome behind you?
That's one of the most beautiful places here. This is a naval cathedral, because this is a naval city, as you know, like we spoke. This is the naval cathedral of Kronstadt. And Ioan Kronstadtski is a very important Russian saint in Russian Orthodox. The city carries his name. So this is like, he used to live here. That's why it's named like this. And here's the eternal flame, which is also important in every city, in Russian cities, and even bigger or smaller, especially middle size and up. Eternal flame, yes, very holy thing for Russians and many Eastern European as well. And I think that's some Marshal. Hold up, where is he? That's I don't remember the name. Embarrassed. Then I'm gonna continue walking to this Patriot Park.
It's honest analysis.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Do we have some questions about? Yeah.
I'm going to ask my question, but just so the audience knows, I'm looking at your questions, and one person said, "What about the genocide of indigenous people?" I don't know what you mean exactly. You have to be more specific. Are you talking about Indians in America? You're talking about something in during Soviet times? Someone else asked, "What do you think of Candace Owens?" She's a young conservative talking head. What can I say? So be a little bit more specific with your questions. So that
by the way,
can,
I also, it's not my specialty, but I know a lot, maybe way above average for a normal European person, know about situation in America. I'll watch tons of news coverage from US. I follow American politics. So these names, I do know them. And I know this, like the controversy behind it, etc. So not that I'm an expert.
Would you like to give us a statement on Candace Owens then, Igor?
Well, I guess you said it correctly, but am I correct that it's really the so-called liberals or democratic people, Democrats are really annoyed by her, correct? Because she's a young, she's black, and she's conservative. All right, so
Shapiro.
I'm just about to say, I had an image of Ben Shapiro in my mind, but I didn't mention. So he very similar image, or like,
Yeah, and she married a British guy, actually. And they've had at least one kid. So, an Englishman, I believe.
Cool.
All right, so my question to you, Igor, is what do you think of Americans in general?
Hey, because my channel has a lot of Americans as subscribers, and I was able to even broader my image understanding of American people, and it's the same as before, and even stronger opinion about them, that American people are just like anybody else, especially Russians, for example. They love their country, they love their family. Most of maybe that's my little bubble, but most of these Americans also love their traditions. And So yeah, basic stuff. I think also American is specifically different, and which is kind of awesome, but kind of a very weird in Europe. American smile and an American openness is like way something else than anybody else. You know, people, and you can see it in the street views. I like to watch a lot of street views and that type of videos, weird stuff from LA, from Florida, New York, and the stuff, how people are open and talking to people they don't know, even though it's really not deep talk, just small talk. But still, that's something you don't see anywhere else on this level. It's crazy how open Americans are, and that's just like in the movies. And also, yeah, but sure, for example, same thing with you, because you're when we met up or talked, especially when it's physical, yeah, it's better example. So you were always you're always smiling. This is, I think it's a cultural thing. It's not that you're having fun maybe, but it's like a reaction, and which is good, because it makes you easier to talk to. It gives you there's a lot of positivity behind it, and I think many countries should learn from it. Russians are very different comparing to American people on behavior wise, because Russians are really, they don't bullshit that much. They will actually just say what they think, or can be very rude if you're bothering them. By the way, same as New York and people from New York. And just make generalizations. So, but also smiling, as you know, it's overly smiling is not a good thing, because you're suspicious, you won't be believed in. But if you get to know a person, people are starting to behave more naturally and show their real skin, and they become like real friends, not just like on a surface level, but like real. You can easily get good friends. That's what I heard also from some foreigner people when I covered this topic on my channel.
Right. No, I would agree with that. I mean, you and I have talked about it before. I think that Americans are trained to be nice first, and Russians are trained to be honest first. And both these things are good, but one's got to be first and one's got to be second. I do think that I reached a point as I was getting older, maybe around 30, 35, where I realized I can't just be happy all the time. I mean, it's good to be happy, but I've still got to be honest. I think being happy to a point helps you have a better attitude, but you still got to stop and be honest with yourself and honest with other people. So I like to be somewhere in the middle now.
Official politeness is another thing that I've lately been taking notice in America. You have to be polite, no matter how it's crazy situation. You're about to kick somebody else. I have also beefs between people and auditors and policemen. I like to watch those stuff as well. And you always have to refer to sir. But basically, you're saying a lot of. I censor myself. You say a lot of shit, but at the same time you're being polite. It's really interesting, and I think in America you have to be, because if you start speaking really straightforward and cussing, you're not gonna be believed, right? You won't achieve the things you want to achieve with that. For example, possibly altercation, right?
Well, if you're hanging out with university people, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So yeah, you know what? I think I have collaborated with you more than most, for sure. You're not the most. There is a guy named Pavel that I've collaborated with more than anybody, but I think you're number 2 on my list. So it is enjoyable to do a collaboration with you, man, for sure.
It is.
And I'm glad that it's not just fun. We're actually having success with it. So how many Americans do you know, or have you known, or am I the only one?
You're probably the only one, as if we're talking about somebody I know, because I don't think it doesn't come to my mind. During my lifetime, I've met Americans and I did some because I used to organize some events as well, etc. I had some Americans who lived in Finland, and I did some collab, but not like this. So probably the only one, but I'm a huge consumer of American content and natural content. I mean, like YouTube and normal, videos. And that's how I think that I know Americans. And I think I've done okay, because no cultural shock or misunderstandings between us in different talks that we had, right? At least not that I know of.
No. It's been completely natural and normal. I feel like I'm just talking to a regular person, which has been an amazing surprise for me, living in Russia now for over 2 years. Yeah. Because I came here 8 days before the special military operation, as I like to say. And so we passed that recently, that 2-year mark, is that there are so many people on this side of the world that I talk to, and it's like I'm talking to an American. I mean, I know, and what I mean by that is it's like a friend. It's like someone who knows me completely fine. It's not like I would have thought a foreigner would be someone that would really have a hard time connecting with me. Yes, there's an accent. Yes, there are differences, but by and large, I connect with a lot of people, and it's comforting and it's encouraging, and it is probably also one of the positive side effects of American influence around the world, I would say.
Yeah, because English. It's people learn English even better, and etc. It helps people to communicate, at the same time. True.
What about Josiah? He's an American, isn't he?
Yeah, but we met only once. Even though, by the way, we met only once. The video is coming on this channel here, and so as soon as we find a correct spot, so we had a discussion about dating, American dating in Russia, and what else, working and studying. Separate things, by the way. And so we have that video coming. But when we talked to him, I felt like, it was very natural. You probably noticed we had a great time, even though I'm between your age and your son's age. Yeah. So, but I guess I was in the younger club at that moment. But anyway, we had a great. Yeah, but it was culturally, there was no difference. I totally got his jokes, and I hope not so good jokes, but still I got them, and vice versa.
So I'm 49 and you're 39, is that right?
38.
Okay, and he's 23. Good deal. Good
what?
Deal.
I had the same reaction last time. I was like, I still can't believe it.
All right, guys. So if you're a fan of my show, Josiah, the grumpy cameraman, will be coming on Igor's channel soon. So you have to be looking out for that.
And also, if I can reveal, Aurora.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Aurora. So
we'll be talking
Aurora,
about the female's, woman's perspective. Whoa.
Very cool. I haven't even previewed that one, so I'm excited to see it.
Can you hear it? It's
not
for
that
us.
I previewed Josiah's, but...
church bells for us.
Oh, really? Oh,
Can you hear it?
Yeah. So so basically, you don't think Americans are bad guys. Is that what you're saying?
Hell no. The problem is only the politics is the problem, because once people get to drinking and being themselves, or without drinking, people are having the same values, same jokes, and same understanding. I'm sure of it. It's only the politics side that is the problem, because people start to talk about like geopolitically and all that stuff, and it's not necessary, right. Even though it feels like a childish thing to say, but it really doesn't. It shouldn't affect 360 degrees of everything, and how people view Russian people in general, or how the media. By the way, politics is the problem, and the media is the tool for it. That's the virus there. The media, it spreads that ideology throughout masses, and the masses that don't have any clue about Russia, and if they believe their media, which many unfortunately still believe, so it spreads like wildfire, those thoughts. So for you and I to do the stuff that we do, you get a lot of commentary probably saying that's not true, that can't be true, you're lying, you're a propagandist, and you are paid because you show nice things. You cannot show dirt so easily in Russia, only if you try, like many YouTubers do try. And so that's what's the effect. You can see the results of the influence. People don't believe you when you show like a nice person. Why are you showing a nice person? You should show the evil Russian with the horns on. That's the Russian. They go, no, this is normal person. You're lying. So this is like the influence of this all.
Right, right. No, you're right. I think you have the right idea. I mean, that's why I've said a lot. I think that Russians have a problem with DC. They do not have a problem with Americans. And yeah, I mean, I have fun on my show. You have fun on your show, because I want people to have a good time. But the show for me is deadly serious. You know, there's a new Cold War now, and
Mm-hmm.
I want it to end. And if I can do a show that people see and they learn more about a part of the world they thought they shouldn't like, then who knows? Even if I end the Cold War 3 days earlier, that's lives saved. So I take it very seriously. Because even my own wife was asking me recently, why am I doing stuff that's a little bit more political? Well, people want to
Mm-hmm.
hear it, and
Yeah.
she was like, it could hurt you. Well, I'm willing to be hurt if it will help, if that makes sense. Yeah, I know it might
Yeah.
sound a little too sentimental, but I mean it. So the bells, we're hearing them better now. And I have another audience question, again from Svetlana. Is that your actual profile pic, Svetlana? It's in black and white, and I heard the black and white might mean something else. But anyway,
I
she
don't know,
said,
but
is Igor married? She said, this is a girly question. And is he married to a Russian woman? And do his kids speak Russian?
yay, good question. I feel like I've been. Yeah. Anyway, yes, I'm married and to a Russian woman, which feels like a very common thing in the YouTube spectrum. But I was, but I've been in love with Russia way before that as well. So things just happened. And yes, my wife Olya, we met in St. Petersburg, and we don't have kids yet, but definitely will speak Russian as their first language. I don't want. I wouldn't want my kids to go through the same thing that I went, where I was somehow maybe even pressurized by the environment to be more something else than Russian, or be myself. Let's not get into that, but too much. But definitely would teach you should love your own heritage and your own culture and your history for sure, and
Okay.
not be pressurized to believe other ways because somebody else wants you to think in certain way.
Well, it sounds like, do you have a romantic story there to tell us about meeting your Russian woman?
Yeah, I never done a video about it, but the most romantic thing here is that when I came to Russia and I wanted to start a YouTube channel, and I started officially filming on the week of Victory Day, which I've always wanted to see for myself. So that's where we actually met, on a Victory Day in St. Petersburg. And we went on a date right after the parade. So for me, it was an important day, but I met somebody who made it even more important.
Wow. That sounds nice. Okay, we're getting a lot of
And
questions here.
And it was very hard, by the way, during the pandemic, because she lived in St. Petersburg, I lived in Helsinki. We didn't see for 8 months. We had to fly to Istanbul because the border was closed. Sounds like familiar now because the border is still closed, but we live together in Helsinki, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. We have a good amount of questions now, so I'm going to start moving us through the audience questions. But I'm now curious, how come you two don't live in Russia?
My work, for example, I don't have work here, and I wouldn't mind. And anybody who knows me knows my dream is to live in Russia, in St. Petersburg. That's my dream, like 100%. But I don't want to live in Russia without doing the work that I am a professional in or at. So I want to be done in my terms, so to speak. I tried hard, but as you know, also in America, in US, in Russia, it's not that easy to find work as a foreigner. And that's what Josiah also said. There's few things you can do and for example, like I said, Russian is not my strongest, so I wouldn't be able to work in marketing the same way I do it in other languages, because there's, I want to I want to do the stuff that I'm a professional in,
Right.
or
But I
work
guess
at distance.
if you have a Russian wife, it'd be easier for you to come here if you decide you
Yeah,
wanted to in the future.
it's not easy. It's not a problem coming here. It's just staying here. So right now, it's not possible because you have to finance yourself somehow. And so the work is the only thing that keeps me from being here, and that's why I travel 15 hours to get here. This location is 300 kilometers away from my home, but I travel 16 hours through 2 countries to get here, and I do it as often as I can.
Wow.
So yeah, the love for
All
this
right,
country and place is strong.
So here's our next question. Why do people talk about NATO as if it's a country?
Yeah, good question. I guess that's also influence of the media. I think I've noticed myself that Finland, they started talking about also as soon as they became part of NATO, they started talking about NATO borders and that type of stuff. And same thing with the European Union. It's been a long, I don't know, intentional or not intentional influence on people that they're talking about these borders as if they're like, land borders. Maybe somebody is trying to make it so. So good question, and there's no answer unless you want to go into conspiracy theories.
Well, I mean, I would say that I think that America is an empire, and these countries in NATO are kind of, not officially, but they're like, satellite colonies and countries of America. And so that's why we might talk about NATO as if it's its own country, because, they are operating as one unit.
Yep.
But that's just my feelings. I don't know that's true.
And I think the smaller countries don't mind it being so because it benefits them. So they're willing to sell a lot of their maybe some level, I would say, independence, sovereignty in order to gain more from NATO. But bigger countries might have more stronger, not skeleton, what you call it, your backs. Backbone, yeah, not backbone. The whole, anyways, yeah, they're stronger.
The spine.
And spine, yeah, they have a stronger spine. But I think this is a Finnish thing. Anyways, yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. It depends on where you are in life, where you live. So next question: what do you see and feel about the sanctions placed on Russia?
Yeah, YouTube's favorite topic. Add sanctions to everything, so people who think it's a major thing for Russians would click on it. But
yes, thank you, Holly, for making our video more viral.
Well, the sanctions, once again, you have to go really deep into economics to understand it. But in daily life, and that's once again, most of the Russians would say as well, it doesn't bother them or it has influence. The prices increased way 2 years ago, like maybe a few percent, and some of them much more. The prices have gone up. I don't know if it's sanctions or just general thing, but the products that left have been replaced with local production. You don't see or feel sanctions anywhere. Maybe it's more like when people need to travel somewhere, people not like crying all around. It's like normal thing. Oh, we can't go to Greece because of the sanctioned situation right now. So they don't go there. They go somewhere else, and it's like becomes new norm. So I think, in my perspective, as a foreigner, once again, I think it's way different. As a minimum, it's way different than anybody who's been watching only the Western news would think it is. It's probably, once again, one of those things that people will tell you that you're lying because it's definitely not what you expect. People are shopping, people are buying, shops are full, which would be normally full in any case, etc. I think you agree.
Yeah, I agree. I was talking to Eddie, the Moscow photographer. That's his channel, and he likes to say that the sanctions are really on foreigners because if you're just living inside of Russia, it doesn't really affect you, but it affects more people like you and I and Eddie, people that are traveling or that are having business on both sides of the border. That's who it's really punishing.
Yeah, and basically in a bigger scale, we're talking about Russians because for it doesn't concern that much. But for example, it's harder for us to enter Russia and that type of stuff, or bring money, which is necessary to live here, or to exist. So these things are actually kind of hard. But once again, they're new norms for me as well. I don't like traveling that long, but I do it because I know in the end game, I'm gonna be here where I want to be, where I feel great.
Yeah, and I heard that even the trade between Russia and America has increased. I could be wrong, but I heard a rumor of that, and that it's actually Western Europe that is getting destroyed by these sanctions because they can't do business with Russia anymore. But business
Yeah,
is
I don't
still
know about
happening between
destroyed,
Russia
but
and America.
it is, and same thing with the Eastern Europe. Even those countries who would look like they hate the most Russian, but they do just like a decent amount of business still. And so it's all games, like I've said, it's all political games in the media spectrum to make people think in certain ways. But I don't think the Western countries are getting destroyed, because I think they can afford to take a lot of this, like a lot of losses in this situation. They're prepared and they just don't mind. But
Right.
they're ready to pay for much more expensive gas, that type of stuff, because of the Nord Stream, etc. Or like
Right. All right. So next question: what do you think about the new wave of new American politicians? Some say many of them are Latinos. Will it affect American politics in the future?
that's
Do
for
you
me
have
as a
any?
Amer- that's for me as an American politics specialist. But I've noticed some. Yeah, I don't know about new era, but I know that Republican Party has some younger ones and etc. I don't think in America anything will change, except maybe in some only in internal things. You know what I mean? That internal
Uh-huh.
things, for example, conservative, or if we're talking about this, the movement that's in America, I'm gonna mention the name. Maybe some things that things are taught in for children. That type of things might change a bit, or how
I think we
people.
could say things that are anti-traditional family values.
Yeah, if Republicans start winning and bring in these new generation, maybe Latinos, etc., especially, that would change. But internationally, I don't think anything will change, and possibly not even with Trump, because that's the funny thing. When Obama came into power, you know, things are gonna get better, or like less wars. There were more wars. I think they just didn't talk about them. When Trump came, he's going to destroy NATO. Well, he didn't. He just made them pay for it. It might change now, but very mildly. Nothing big changes ever comes with change of presidency or party winning party, I think, and that's what
Right,
should
right.
be worrisome, because everywhere politics, they always promise you everything, and nothing changes after 4 or 6 years, depending on the country.
Right. As far as my opinion, because I lived in America for 47 years. Actually, my first wife was Mexican. Um, I know Josiah, I know Aurora, I know
Hmm.
Eddie, the Moscow photographer. I've met a few Latin guys here in Russia. We kind of gravitate to each other because we're all from the Americas.
Hmm.
Um, when you're at that level of a politician, in my opinion, these are people that are Americans first, and they
Hmm.
are Latin second, or they are European
Yeah, yeah.
second. And so, off the top of my head, there's Marco Rubio, right? And
Yep.
he looks like a Latin guy, but he is an he just acts like an American. Period. He happens to be a
Yep.
little bit
Yep.
darker. That's the only difference I see.
They use it
Ted
only for
Cruz,
to win some political points.
yeah, I mean Ted Cruz, he's also Latin. I wouldn't
Yep.
know he was Latin unless you told me.
Yep.
Same
Unless Trump
same with
told you, he gave you the name back in the
Same
day.
with Ron DeSantis. I also wouldn't know he was Latin unless you told me. Um, so
Yep.
I I don't know that the Latin influence can change things much. I could be wrong. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I mean, I was listening to Tucker talk recently, Tucker Carlson, and his theory is that DC is letting the American cities get destroyed on purpose to create chaos. So the regular people will then ask the elites to take charge. And so it'll be a way for elites to gain more power. And one of the ways to do this is to open the borders. And so that might mean Latin people coming in. That might mean all kinds of people coming in. It doesn't have to be Latin necessarily. So that's his theory. And it would affect voting because, the immigrant who is in need of assistance is going to be more likely to vote on, the left, on, which is who is in charge of DC right now, in a way. So, alrighty. So next question, and again, don't be shy about the questions, guys. We're going to end in about 25 minutes.
How many people watching?
We got 139 on my ticker right now.
Everybody push like and subscribe.
It's been hovering around that. Yeah. Like and subscribe and hit the share button, guys. It helps. The sooner you do it, the more people get to see it because the algorithm thinks, oh, people like this. They share it with more people. And it's more fun to do it live. So next question.
Subscribe to both channels.
Oh, yeah, of course. And his channel is written on the screen and it's in the title as well. I
showed you a couple of lovebirds in the back.
East to West Quest. Lovebirds? Oh, go back and say hi to them. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So, Igor, here's the question from Iwa Barbara. How much do you spend per month for living in a big city?
In St. Petersburg, you mean?
Well, we could answer it either way.
Yeah, in St. Petersburg, I would say, because I haven't been here, I've rarely been so long because I need to get back because I have responsibilities back in Finland, like work, etc. But let's say people ask me this: how much money you need to live? If we don't talk about rent, you can rent on the outskirts of the city for like $200-250 per month. You pay like $30 to $60 more for communal services. So $300 for the apartment. And basically you can live off easily for, I don't know, if you're saving money, maybe $10 a day, just my rough estimation. So, you can do in Russia, in St. Petersburg, average salary is 90 to 100,000. So $900 up to $1,000. You can do cheaper than that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
Moscow
in
is
Moscow.
more expensive.
I'm renting a flat, and it's something like $2,000 a month. But that's a lot because I'm towards the center, and I have. How many children do I have? 5.
5.
So I have an unusually large place. So for most people, it would not be anywhere near this expensive. It might be
2,000 is but that's Moscow also. But still, it's probably a big apartment as well, right? It sounds like it.
Yeah. Someone told me they've never seen bigger.
All right, so that explains it. And I talked about 200 for like 40-50 square meters.
So Svetlana has another question. How can one speak of Americans? I thought they were diverse. You want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, I guess we just for the video sake and just general talk sake, right? You have to make generalizations, but naturally in any country you shouldn't do that. But I guess you're allowed to. You're right.
Yeah,
otherwise, people. Yeah.
You could make the same argument about Russia, right?
Of course. The biggest country in the world. There's Tatarstan and South Russia and the Siberians. They're all different kind of people.
Yeah, I mean, you got different cultures, but like in Russia, again, I think you're Russian first. And probably in America, you have to be an American first. Like I said, if you're going to be at a political level or a university level or an upper level, you're going to be putting your unique culture aside and being just normal American. And people like to make the argument, oh, you're not American, you're in the United States, or you are American, but so's everybody else over here. Yeah, we know that. It's just slang talk, that's all. So we have another question. It looks like this is for me. I'll squeeze it in. Is Aurora studying what subject? Yes, Aurora is studying. She is a linguist. So she's learning like 3 or 4 languages. And she is at MGU, did I say it right? Moscow State University.
Uh-huh.
And this, I think she's on her 2nd year now. Yeah, she must be. And they have the choice. If you're a foreigner, they put you in the foreign program with the English speakers. If you're not, of course, you do the Russian program with the Russians. And she insisted to do the Russian program with the Russians because she, had spent almost a decade with Sveta, and she wanted to be treated just like any old Russian. They didn't want to do that at first, but they let her do it, and she's doing good. So next question. Do Russians like to drive or use public transportation?
I want to take that.
Do it, man.
And unfortunately, I think as a visitor to the country, I think car ownership and driving is actually overappreciated because the cities very often, depending on the places, of course, are basically built for cars. Cars first, people second. If I have to make this claim, I would do so if I have to choose. But transportation in big cities is great. St. Petersburg and metro is very important. And that's when transportation actually wins over cars during the rush hours. During the rush hours, you're going to, especially in Moscow, you have to stay maybe even 2 hours in line in traffic. And that metros just continue going. And same thing with St. Petersburg. Not as bad traffic as in Moscow. But yeah, great transportation in big cities, not so great in smaller cities, but cars are ruling. What you think?
Yeah, if you don't live in a big city in Russia, you would have to have a car, or you'd have to be like living near Main Street of your small town, so you could walk everywhere. I do not have a car. I spent my adult life with cars in Florida because I was in small town Florida, but we moved here 2 years ago, and we started renting because I didn't want to buy something I hadn't seen. And of course, I didn't bring a car with me. I looked into that. That would be it just was cost prohibitive. It was better for me just to sell my car and buy one when I got here. I have yet to buy a car because I don't need it, because it's like you're in New York City. I mean, I could walk out the door and be in Red Square in less than 40 minutes, maybe 30. So it's very convenient. Everything is right next to me. So it's very cool.
I don't mind either. And plus, if you have a little bit extra money, taxis are very affordable when it's not rush hour. It can be if you're 2-person going to 50-minute drive, let's say to the metro station, if you're so far away, you can actually, very often taxi is a better choice than in time expenditure and also money-wise. Because tickets, for example, could be 150 rubles for 2 persons, same amount as taxi, but it's going to pick you up and drive right away. So yeah, taxis are very affordable, even though the prices have gone up way more during these 2 years.
Right. So we have another question here. Is there such a thing as dual Russian-American citizenship? Do you have an answer for them, Igor?
I actually don't know. I was hoping you would say.
I do know. And that is, the governments do not communicate with each other on that level, America and Russia. They didn't even do so before things got bad 2 years ago, before the new Cold War began. So a person is able to have Russian citizenship and American citizenship. It is not technically dual citizenship because America doesn't take notice of Russia's and Russia doesn't take notice of America's. There's nothing illegal about it. You would just have 2 separate citizenships. And technically it's not dual.
That's even better because I know Finland has dual citizenship and it's been over politicized. And this
Now
way,
here's a difficult political question that you should answer carefully, or you can pass. Do you support imprisoning the dual Russia-USA ballerina for giving a small donation to a Ukrainian humanitarian organization?
I have no comments, and I actually really don't know the situation. I guess this might be the person that somebody been trolling my channel. I'm like, who's this name? So I don't know the backstory of it at all, and no comments.
It's interesting that they asked it because I had heard, I think, from one person this week is there is some ballerina that was raising money for Ukraine while in Russia and trying to send money to Ukraine. So I heard it like she had set up an organization or something. This person is phrasing it as if she just gave a little bit. Well, let's say we're not talking about Russia, Ukraine, and America. We're just talking about some fictional countries. Think about it, guys. Would you, in one country, raise money for another country that the country you're in is in a military engagement with? I mean, that is not the thing to do. That is not a smart thing to do. It's not a wise thing to do. Period.
But usually people who comment or try to have a strong opinion, they never think the other way around, because the mindset is because of the only thing that they read is about from this other imaginary country. You know, so they cannot think about that. Hey, there's two sides to a coin.
Yes. All right, so I don't have an answer to this one. Maybe you will. If someone was born in Russia but none of the parents are Russian, can they have Russian citizenship?
I don't think it's very complicated, and I talked to some lawyers, interviewed some lawyers about the topic. I don't. This is like an American thing, right? Because if you was born in America, you are automatically American, more or less, something like that. So I don't think Russia is
birthright citizenship.
I don't think it's like that. You have to have the citizenship is not granted just like that. If you don't have Russian citizenship, you should. If it's you have to live here, work here, get your permanent residency, apply for that, for the citizenship later, or, for example, if you have both parents Russians, or there's a different levels to it. But I don't think it's this easy. Russia is the country of bureaucracy, so it might get easier sometimes, but definitely not as easy as in this question. I might be wrong though.
Okay, so next question. Shoot, I lost it just when I thought I knew what I was doing. So Igor, tell us while I find the question, what is your channel about?
Well, basically, I love exploring Russia. It's the it's guide videos, how to travel, how to behave. Then there's also the aspect of finding new cities, new towns, new places, people, events, that type of thing. And what's new on this new channel is that there's gonna be more thought through videos, because my previous video I did a lot of content, but maybe even too much content, So this new channel, West to East Quest, is gonna be more about major topics, more interestingly, and shorter videos, not too long and not too short, perfect. So that's what it's all about. And of course, from the Western perspective, that's my speciality. I'm one of the few, maybe even the only one who travels to Russia. So I bring the fresh, good or bad, not ideas, but new information about Russia, and I read about Russia from the West, so I'm able to compare it. And that's something that you can do it as well, but I'm actually physically coming from abroad to this country. So I guess it's what differentiates me a bit.
Right.
And I speak Russian. That gives me new possibilities to understand things as well,
Right. All right. So I put another question on the screen here. Does Igor have a kafia? And Igor, we're getting a lot of wind on you, just so you
I'm
know.
gonna
We're getting
I'm
wind on
gonna
the
go
mic.
back to this corner because I guess kafia, does he mean like a coffee? Coffee.
I don't know. I don't know. Do you see it on the screen?
Yes, I do. Does Igor have a
Okay.
kafia? I'm not sure what is
And he
kafia.
subscribed to your channel, so you better answer this question.
Well, my answer is I don't know, but let me write in some of my videos comments what is kafia, and I will answer. But if you mean like, do I
Very
have
good.
I don't know what's kafia. But thank you for subscribing. West to East Quest.
So
it rhymes well.
we're going to end in about 10 minutes, and someone just made a donation of 20 euros. I'm going to try and find that person and thank them, not physically. I mean, I'm going to scroll through the comments. But Igor, next question. Do you see NATO and the EU as the same, especially with the Schengen being proposed?
Well, definitely it's been going that way. I think even intentionally, following all the news, they try to make it. Usually, some country that is not in NATO is been influenced by saying, "Well, you have chosen your values. It's the same values as in the most of the countries in the EU, which are in the NATO." They try to make this combination all the time, and I knew it because this is how it works. This is how the alliance also spreads. They try to make, for example, before Finland was part of the NATO. They were saying, those who were supporting NATO were saying, well, basically we already are in NATO. We have chosen our sides in the EU, so it's not a big deal. Like, okay, nice one, touche. So that's a very common thing to influence people's decision making, even though it didn't need that because they just decided to join without any proper voting or polls or anything. Just polls, yeah. But anyway, I don't. I might think so as well because that's how they've been intentionally trying to make the EU and NATO almost the same thing, and eventually the same thing. And those countries who are not in NATO maybe even pressurized to somehow, like, hey, you're riding free, you should join as well and put in your into the collective. It's even though NATO wasn't supposed to be spreading, right? Remember?
Right. Okay, so I want to be sure and get this question in because this person, Atmos, gave us 20 euros. Do you think BRICS will have a new currency at some point?
Depending on what's the situation with BRICS in the future, but it's just a guessing game. But I would say in the far future, maybe Chinese, maybe. China is so next level as a superpower economically and militarily, so might be, but I don't think it's like necessary as long as it's not dollar is their position, I think.
Yeah, I was also going to say I just don't know that it's necessary. I mean, as far as Western Europe, I can see where that was an idea that they thought might be good because they're like, well, we're kind of like a bunch of states when you compare the size to the United States, and we're all so close to each other, and the world's becoming smaller with technology. What if we all had the same currency? I just don't. It's less of an important thing when you're talking about Russia, China, and different BRICS nations that are far apart from each other and big.
Yep.
But thank you so much, Atmos. So next question is for me. I'll squeeze it in as we start to wrap up. But guys, also Atmos, thank you so much. And one of the reasons why I do these lives is because people like to donate. So please support the show if you can. Support Igor's show. But the question is, where do you live in Florida? I lived in Tallahassee, Florida. I was born and raised there. So it's kind of like a country town, but it is the capital and it has universities in it. So it's an interesting mix of white collar and blue collar. Looks more like Georgia. Is that one of your rescue cats?
No, there's just kids. I'm just gonna mute.
So it looks more like Georgia than Florida, although it's technically in Florida. So it's a nice place, or it was a nice place to raise kids. Hopefully it still is. I'm not there, and all I get is what I hear from a distance. And I spent my 20s in New York and California, going to New York University for film and working in the Hollywood movie industry. But yeah, so that is me. So guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. Huh?
Piece of Soviet history.
What? Oh, tell us, what is it?
Apartment building. Typical Soviet apartment building.
And they are 5 stories with no elevator, correct?
Some might have, depend on the city, etc. And then they might have new ones. Yeah. But this is, yeah, there's, we talked about it. There's few that they just attach on the outer side because they're not able to squeeze it inside, or, yeah.
Okay.
But
so guys, I'm gonna end in 4 minutes. If I missed your question and you can type it really quick, I might be able to squeeze it in. But I want to leave this very end to say thanks so much for watching and for listening to us talk and try to learn more about America and Russia and how these two places connect and how they can get along. And I appreciate Igor joining me again for this hopefully intellectual conversation. If you're meeting us for the first time, if you haven't seen all of our stuff and you thought this was good and you're thinking, those guys are fantastic, if only I could be their friend and hang out with them and have a great time with them, you can do that right now. Go watch our video, Ukraine Cafe in Russia. It is a serious topic, but the tone of the video is a very good time. So,
and of course, then the video with you in Moscow with Josiah on my channel after that.
Yes.
Moscow nightlife with Expat American and Josiah.
That's right. It's a collaboration. So you can see the Ukrainian Cafe video on my channel, and then it'll roll you straight into the video that Igor and I did with Josiah, who you may or may not know.
And I want to thank you as well, and thanks for having me on your show. I know you have a busy schedule, so really nice to talk to you and your subscribers, and hopefully a lot of them will subscribe to my channel as well. It's a new growing channel, West to East Quest. But I started off with the Russian Navy fleet, and I walked through suburbs, the city center, cathedral. And you guys who know a Russian Soviet history, I'm going to show you this. This is where I'm going to end this as well. The Russian Winnie Pooh. Do you know him? Do your kids
Russian
watch
Winnie
this?
Pooh? I'm glad you said that. It's a very good ending because I've been drinking tea out of British Winnie the Pooh.
It's destiny.
Disney Winnie the Pooh.
But this is what I love. Like in Russia, you just can go anywhere in bigger or smaller city and you will find stuff. This is just adventure for me every time I come. I'm so excited. This is awesome.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, Russia has their own Winnie the Pooh. So I assume that because Russia was its own disconnected thing, they just kind of said, oh, okay, we like that Winnie the Pooh thing. We're going to make our own without buying the rights for it. But maybe I'm wrong. So now, from Soviet times, there's this culture of kids growing up watching the Russian Winnie the Pooh. So you got Russian Winnie the Pooh, and then, of course, the British Winnie the Pooh that Disney bought.
You guys are going to love the cartoon. Just Google it on YouTube, and you're going to love it. The song. Your kids
might know. They're going to love it?
Definitely. Even
I don't
more
know about that.
He's so funny.
If they're an adult, they might not love it.
They will love it because it's so funny and the voice is legendary. Anyways, comment later on our channels if you have watched it. Russian Winnie Pooh.
Okay, I would say you'll find it interesting for about 30 seconds.
With translations, I think. With translations, of course. They're great movies, cartoons.
Yeah. La da 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 da. Yes, I know. I know how it goes.
All right.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. Igor and I, we're both trying to bridge the gap and help end the Cold War. It's very important, and you have been a part of it in this show. And go on over to his channel right now and watch one of his videos, and definitely check out mine. It's not viral today, but my new video is doing well. What do you want them to watch right now, Igor?
The Ukraine video in the cafe, and then of course, naturally, right away, the Moscow video with you, and that's a natural way to do it.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.